A very good morning to all. I know it's a bit gloomy out here, but I'm sure, the talk is going to dispel some gloom at least and shed more light on some very important issues that we are going to be discussing here. Uh, a very warm welcome to Kalpana Pant, who's the speaker for today's lecture. She's the executive director at Chaitanya, and Mubin, my colleague and a member of WDC, will be introducing her in a greater detail. Uh, I'm very happy to see so many students from various departments who have joined because all these talks, which have to do with gender sensitization primarily, are for all of you. So a huge thanks for signing in and for being here. A very warm welcome to all my colleagues. I see a lot of people who've made time to be here. I know, we all have classes, etc. So a special thanks to each one of you. And of course, I think this goes without saying, a huge thanks to all members of WDC, Mubin, Nidhi, Preeti, and everybody else, Manisha, okay, for always sort of helping us to organize these programs and to and in making it a success. Special thanks to Mubin because I think she got in touch with Kalpana ma'am, and so special thanks to you, Mubin. Thanks also to Shidba for doing all the work. Okay, work technical stuff, which we constantly seek the help of our students in doing this, and just thanks. I wouldn't want to take much of your time, and I would just hand it over to Mubin to carry on with the proceedings. But thank you all very much for being here. I think to make time out, especially for issues relevant to women, is very, very important. We make more than half of our population, yet we are, silenced, marginalized. We are barely represented, even, in the halls of power. So I think, in very small ways, we do make significant changes, and change begins with us. So when we take time out, when we indulge in such conversations, discussions, I think we make a beginning. I think we make a contribution towards making that change. So thank you all very much from the bottom of my heart for being here. Moving over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Shibani Pukan. Uh, it gives me immense delight to introduce our honorable speaker today. Uh, before I introduce her, I just would want to quote. I just want to mention a quote of Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, since it's his birth anniversary today. He said, "No program of national education can be appropriate if it does not give full consideration to the education and advancement of one half of the society, that is the woman." So, keeping in thought this view, um, I really thank our Women Development Cell. Uh, Shiba, I mean, I just dropped the idea of having a lecture on this topic, and Shivani, uh, she just said, yes, this is a topic that is so relevant, and we cannot have anybody else but the speaker that we have today, Kalpana Pant, to speak on this issue. Friends, our principal sir has always been very supportive, and due to some very urgent meeting, he couldn't make it, but he's always there for every lecture, every seminar. So we are thankful to him also. Now, let me introduce you to this great and very I should कल्पना के बारे में मैं आपको क्या बताऊं. कल्पना पंत, she has done her MPhil in women's studies from Jawaharlal Nehru University on the topic reconstruction of femininity in women's journals. Her dissertation. She's also an MA from in modern history from JNU. She is the executive director and trustee of an NGO, Chaitanya. Now, this organization, I think Kalpana ji would definitely speak about her organization and the work that she's doing. Uh, she has been leading many projects, and she has conducted gender trainings and designed gender policy for innovators in health and organizations in Bihar working for UNO peace projects. Kalpana ji has she has conducted assignments on behalf of USAID by Chemonics International to assess 1,500 plus community banks, and she has been the leader of team involved in conducting evaluation of Manrega in Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra. And this report was submitted in January 2019. She has led a team for evaluation and study of Rajiv Gandhi Mahila Vikas Pariyojana on women's empowerment and health behavior. She has designed e-learning course on self-help groups, institutions of Purin joint collaboration with TIS, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, in order to strengthen capacity building initiatives of self-help group federations. Kalpana ji not only has these, I mean, these are very few that I'm mentioning, the list goes on. She has also designed manuals on planning, monitoring, and evaluation and resource mobilization for civil society organization with the guidance of International Development Research Center, Canada. Uh, she has several research and publications, Empowerment and Health Behavior 2017, Effectiveness of Self-Help Groups and Federation, Impact on Women Empowerment, Manual on Financial Literacy, Status of SHGs, that is Self-Help Groups in Madhya Pradesh. There is this interesting one, designed a cash flow game, a rural version of Monopoly game based on the cash flow study. Now, the game is used to explain the learnings of the research study. This is an interesting thing that Kalpana ji has done. She has continuously, she's had a series of publication and work. Um, she has gender impact assessment, an assessment of rural communes on an organization working in the field of rural development through gender lens. And not only publication, Kalpana Pant ji has been part of policy making. It gives me immense pleasure, and I'm really heartened to know that women like Kalpana Pant ji working on this area, and she's also part of policy making. And she has been on various committees deputed by NABARD to develop a business correspondent policy on providing loans to SHG Federation. Uh, she designed standard operating procedures on financial management for village organization and cluster level federation in Jharkhand, state of Jharkhand. She has been the Joint Secretary of Rural Development Department, Government of India, has issued a letter to all Hindi speaking states to train their teams in e-learning course. So this is something that, is very interesting. And as Kalpana ji speaks, she's going to, make us aware of this kind of work that she has been doing. Friends, this is a very minor introduction that I could give of Kalpana Pant ji. And she at present is the executive director, like I told you, of Chaitanya. And मैं वहीं से आपको छोड़ूंगी जो चैतन्य के उस पे है कि बहाना बचत का बदलाव महिलाओं का. तो I welcome Kalpana Pant ji to speak on this very relevant issue, empowerment through women's collectives. And on behalf of the WDC and Atmaram Sanatan Dharm College, University of Delhi, on behalf of all my colleagues who are so eager to listen to you and the students here, I welcome Kalpana Pant ji. आइए आपका खैर मकदम है, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Shibani. Thanks, Mubin. We have been having interactions in the group, but it's a pleasure to see you in your department along with the students. And good to be connected back to Delhi after a long gap, also because of COVID. It's been a little difficult to visit Delhi, though I did visit 2 months back. So, hi, students. I think this is the time when there is a lot of aspiration and a lot of confidence that we can change the world. I just remember when I'm interacting with you, I remember the times when we were having similar interactions in Delhi. I was part of LSR and then JNU, and very inspirational thoughts. And we always believed that we could change the world. And after 22 years, also, I think I get up every day in the morning believing that yes, we can't change the entire world, but whatever little we can change, we do change. So always believe in the power of change, and our organization very strongly believes that for change it's important for people to come together. And here in the case of women, we very strongly believe in the power of women's collectives. And whenever we talk about collectives, we always talk about how women relate to each other, how women support each other, the kind of social network, the kind of confidence that women give to each other, and the power, the energy that is generated, that has the power to change the world. It's not you and I who change the world, it's the collective that brings about that change. And we believe in that, we live that, and that is what I'm going to share with you. But before I do that, I'm sure your department must have already given you an orientation. And if we were face to face, I would have asked questions. But unfortunately, in this mode of communication, I would just like to ask you the question of why do you think there is marginalization of women? What are the reasons for women's subordination? I think once you relate to the root cause, you will also be able to understand how we are working and why we are working. Um, I come from JNU, so very clearly, a lot of influence of the left has been there. And uh, while it would have been great to have your responses, I will only be doing the talking right now.
Sorry, Kalpana ji, we'll have a question answer session after your talk.
Maybe later, yeah.
Yeah. So
So
you can.
I know it becomes a little difficult because of some connectivity issues. Some people may want to, so I will do the talking. But in future, just if you can park this question in your head and just start thinking of what.
Maybe
And
they
when
can write in the chat box.
Yeah, they can write
Yeah.
in the chat
So
box.
yeah, and you can respond. Yeah, please. Yeah.
So, where do you locate the reasons for women's subordination? I think a clarity on that is very important, and subsequently, then designing intervention strategies. So, when I would be looking forward to your thoughts on that, but when I looked at it, one of the major reasons, and I'm sure in theories you must have read about patriarchy, capitalism as one of the major reasons, and sexuality, women's sexuality. These are the three reasons how it's presented and all that. So we thought that there are three things that are very important. One is, of course, financial independence, economic empowerment, which we call. So there should be flow of money in the hands of women. And you will be very surprised. I don't know how many of you have orientation to villages, but there are many women who, when we were doing the Manrega study, they said this is the first time they were handling cash directly, because some money is paid directly to the bank in their bank accounts, and sometimes it's given in cash, and the experience of handling cash was for the first time. And in the self-help groups, when women start saving with 20 rupees initially, and then 100 rupees, and now a lot of women are saving even 500 rupees, and the fact that they come collectively together and decide on who to give a loan to, I think those are important areas of decision making, which gives confidence to women that yes, we can take good decisions, our decisions matter, and most importantly, it gives them self confidence. And one of the things that the self help group women talk about after a year or so of being in the self-help group is a sense of identity. And I think all of us at some point of time do face the question of who am I, where do I stand in this big world, and more so for women who are usually uh, called out as somebody's I in Maharashtra, somebody's mother, somebody's sister. So, to have an identity of their own, we in the self help groups start with introducing yourself. So, and anytime you go to a village, you try that. If you haven't already, you ask women to introduce themselves, and you see the way they will be giggling and laughing because this is the first time in public they are talking, they're saying their name. And while it is very sweet and you laugh a lot, it also hits you at some in some corner that for a lot of women, calling out their name itself has been denied to them in a way in our society. So so this is what the collective does. And I personally very strongly believe that it is cutting across caste, class, religion. Women relate to each other in a way which cuts across these, though there are postmodernists and there are theories which will talk about there are no women per se as a whole, because there are women from different castes, there are women from different color, women from different class. But I just wanted to give you an example. I was traveling by bus to Nandurbar, one of the villages, and I was at a bus stop in Sendhwa, and I saw four women. One of them was around 45 year old. Uh, the others were 20, 25, and they were so there were trucks which had cotton loaded onto them, which were passing by. So we were standing at the bus stop, and when the trucks were taking a turn, these women would get up uh, on the truck, try to steal cotton, and keep it with them. Now, the whole exercise is very dangerous, as you know, and there were people on top of the truck who were trying to prevent them from stealing. So they would beat them or they would kick them. And it was pretty disturbing to see that. And I was just like, is this where we are today? That women have to steal like a handful of cotton. What is the income that they would be getting? And I approached them, I talked to them, I said, why don't you try Manrega policy and this and that. Manrega programs, there is income from there. And these women were like laughing at me. They're like, okay, somebody from the city has come. So they made fun of me and they said, haha, do you want to give us money? Give some money. So I gave them money. I came back. And then one of them fell also when the truck person kicked her. And I usually have seen a lot of distress, but I somehow, looking at that scene, I couldn't control my tears and I started crying. And more so because the people around me were talking about, oh, these Adivasi women, they must be drunk and this is what they do. They will now steal, now they will spend money on liquor and this and that. So, a lot of disparaging remarks on the women. And then I saw that one of them, she noticed that I was crying. So she looked at me and she said, it's okay. She came to me and she literally wiped tears from my face. And she's like, don't cry. Do you want your money back? Take it. I don't want your money, but don't cry. Like, and she started comforting me, like, because for her I was like the victim who is getting affected by the distress, and she is comforting me. Now, in terms of everything, like there's a different class, there's a, I don't know about the caste so much, different caste, but everything. But you see here, for a woman to be able to relate to another woman who is in, according to her, in pain is what made me commit to the work that we are doing, that irrespective of where we are from, we connect with each other in a way, we connect with each other's pains and troubles in a way that many others will not be able to, other genders especially. So this is why I have this very firm belief that we connect with each other across caste, class, across religion, across color, for nationally, internationally also. And that is the power of collectives. That is the power of coming together. That is the power of providing support to each other, providing the sense of I cannot do it alone, but if I have the support of others, I can do it. And we started looking at this question. And for Shibani and Mubin, I would like to share a theory that we made for this research also that we did for Rajiv Gandhi Mahila Vikas Pariyojana. Amazing work that they were doing. Now a lot of work has stopped because of change of government and a lot of other issues. But we did an evaluation, and I have seen the poverty in Uttar Pradesh as compared to Maharashtra, where I've spent most of my time fieldwork. UP is really distressing, like, and to be able to provide loans to women through banks at a very low rate of interest. Rajiv Gandhi Pariyojana has done great work. But how we were trying to evaluate them and what was the framework that we used, and I would like to share with all of you this. So when change happens, and I would suggest to all the students to believe in the concept of collectives bringing about change. How does that happen? The collectives first bring in a woman desire for change. So while there are a lot of women who would be accepting beating, and I have seen this in Bihar, like this very beautiful woman who was very happily sharing everything. And then we asked her to share about her 24-hour cycle, like what is it, the kind of work that you do. And then she just said, passing remark of, yeah, my husband beats me up when he doesn't get tea in the morning or something like that. And she doesn't even mind it, like it's just so matter of fact. And at that point I just stopped for a minute, and I was like, should we even talk about gender issues now? She doesn't seem to be minding it. She's just accepted it, and she's just. And then I had a lot of mental, later on also, a lot of discussion in my mind about should we not. And then that's how we designed our entire training program also. If you have questions around this, I'll be happy to answer. But the first is the desire for change. A lot of you in your lives also, when you look at a role model or when you look at something, that is when you feel that things need to change. Or when you look at some kind of exploitation or some kind of wrong or some kind of injustice, what is it that brings in us a desire for change? For a lot of women in rural areas who have lived very isolated or less exposed lives, the fact that they come together in a collective, they see other women, they see different ways of living their lives. I think that is a very, and the kind of confidence that they get in articulating, in expressing. The example that I gave you about, you know, sharing their names itself is the first step. So that brings in women a desire for change. That's the first step. Any change comes with first the desire for change. And that is where the collectives play a very important part. Then the second part is the means for change. Okay, I know that my husband beats me up, and I think it is wrong because there are a lot of women who live their lives without getting beaten up. It's not a normal thing. So, how do I address this problem? What are the means at hand? So, or why is it that I keep accepting this? And the means of change could be both in terms of financial resources, in terms of personal capabilities, in terms of personal confidence to be able to say no, in terms of resisting. So it's a mix of finance, economic, as well as the social capital that gets generated through the social networks that the collectives bring about. So this is what is the second step in we believe in change. And the third, of course, then is the action for change. So I have the desire, I may also have the means, but I have seen a lot of women who would still not take action. ठीक है, जैसे चल रहा है वैसे चलने देते हैं, इसके रेपकशंस क्या होंगे अगर मैं एक्शन लूंगी? तो ऐसे भी इच्छा भी है, संसाधन भी है हमारे पास, लेकिन उस पे एक्शन लेने के लिए हमें अभी भी डर लग रहा है, क्योंकि हम उसके परिणाम क्या होंगे इससे बहुत डरते हैं, क्योंकि पता नहीं है, कुछ भी हो सकता है। तो ये एक कॉन्फिडेंस आना, और इसके लिए कलेक्टिव्स का बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट रोल होता है कि आप करो, हम आपके साथ हैं। You have a fallback option. It's so important, and for all of us, I think acknowledgement, acceptance is very, very important, that whatever we are doing at least will not be questioned by a certain group. So having that network, having that group is very important, which is what leads us to taking the actual action for change. और एक्शन होने के बाद, ठीक है, हमने रेजिस्ट भी किया, आई सेड, एंड व्हाटएवर हैपेंड इन विद इन माय फैमिली, but is it that the community is accepting it, or am I just one of the outliers? Am I just considered to be outside the total social setup? How is it that I am looked at? And there also the collectives play an important role in terms of bringing in acceptance for change. So desire, means, action, and acceptance. These are the four stages we believe that a collective supports women's change process. And I think for us, therefore, it's been very, very important that whatever change we bring about, the change is facilitated by women. So we are, we are somewhere in the middle. We are neither very professional organization which has very high flying professionals who have IIM degrees or like IITs and all that. Neither are we people who are just raising their flags and saying we oppose this, we oppose this. What we do is we invest a lot in building capacities of women. I would again state that there are sometimes limitations to that, because right now the funding is such, especially from the corporates, where there is an expectation of immediate results. So the kind of investment in capacity building that at one point of time used to be there has reduced, but still your design needs to be such that there is a lot of investment in capacity building of women. So the programs that we do, now I come to that. So what do we do with this understanding? We started in 1991. We promoted the first SHG Federation in Maharashtra. SHG, I don't know how many of you are familiar with it, maybe not. So SHG is by and large a group of 10 to 20 women who come together, they save, they take loans from the savings itself. Now, after 6 months, banks are supposed to be providing them credit, which now the recent government announcement has been that it can be up to 10 lakhs. So for a group of 10 women, 10 lakhs means every member is entitled to get 1 lakh each. The decision is taken by the members themselves. Their decision is final. It's not dictated by anyone, either the bank or even the promoting institution. So, but of course, banks have their own limitations. You must have read in the newspapers. Banks are very, very reticent to give loans right now because they are very afraid of a lot of uh, regulations which have come in, making them accountable for bad loans. Though the amount of bad loan is increasing day by day, but still. But that's the whole idea of self-help group. Then there is a second tier called the village organization, which is a collective of self-help group women at the village level. So it's basically an institution which is a women's institution which focuses on village level issues and also intermediates in financial transactions for them. And then there is a federation. A federation typically will be 25 to 30 villages, around 300 to 500 groups in one federation. The idea that Chaitanya promoted is that these institutions will become self-reliant and sustainable if you're spending 1500 rupees per woman as a grant over a period of 3 years. That's the idea we promoted. That's how we asked for funds. And we decided to set up these institutions as small banks. And if you come to the field area of Chaitanya, you will be happy to see the kind of decision making that women have, the kind of ownership that women have, the kind of figures that they talk about. I mean, I feel a great sense of pride in this, that women have complete. I'm trying to create that in Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh also now. But the kind of ownership in Maharashtra is amazing. So I would invite all of you to come and visit once if possible. Uh, so this is what we created, and in 3 to 5 years' time, with this kind of expense, women's institutions will be self-governed and will be self-reliant and sustainable. So our principle is that we create institutions of women, poor women in rural areas, which are self-governed, self-reliant, and sustainable, which help women decide what they want to do. Because when women are together and there is fund also flowing in, then they can decide what other aspects they want to work on, be it health, be it education, especially violence against women, which is another area that women have taken up, and we are doing quite a lot of work there. So, how do they become sustainable? The groups keep 10% of the total savings that they save in the group in the federation, 10 to 15%. That's the group's decision. And when they are taking a loan, they keep 5% as fixed deposit. So gradually, the corpus of the federation builds up. The federation also takes loans from banks. I would like to share, and that is one of the reasons why Chaitanya is today a national resource organization for federations. We have received an award from the Arun Jaitley ji in 2017 in NABARD's anniversary, 25 years of completion of SHG Bank Linkage Program. Arun Jaitley ji felicitated Chaitanya for our work with SHGs and federations. And this 30th of November, we are again getting our federation is getting an award at the hands of G.R. Chintala ji, the chairperson of NABARD, for the best federation. So the fact that these federations are self-reliant, sustainable, are also getting loans from Bank of Maharashtra, getting loans from a foreign bank, Rabobank. They are entering into a financial transaction with these community-driven institutions. And we are also happy to share that we got these institutions rated also, financial rating through CRISIL and MCRIL, because when it comes to money, so that's why I'm saying we are neither here nor there. We are also trying to be financially prudent financial norms need to be accepted. So if you talk of return on equity, operational self-sufficiency, return on assets, portfolio quality, these are the financial terms that we have to understand, and then we have to give similar training to women. And with the understanding that it's not just running a financial institution, it's running a financial institution for women's empowerment. So that is why Bahana Bachat Ka Badlao Behnon Ka. That is the focus that we have, and this is the reason why I think I take pride in that fact that the kind of sincerity with which we promote women's institutions, which are women driven, is an example for the country. And that is something that through the support of rural development departments, NRLM has recognized us as a resource organization. Even Tata Institute of Social Sciences has taken the course content that we have developed, and we are the first institution that started with joint certification of courses with TISS in 2010, when Dr. Parshuraman ji was the director. That is the first time a civil society organization did joint certification with Tata Institute of Social Sciences. And now we have 3 courses with TISS. And just now, I think hopefully by next week, you will see another course with on TISS website. This is because it's launched, you will see it in this website. It is on rural fellowship. So while a lot of students from urban areas interested in development work come as fellows to us, we thought that we could also design a fellowship program where the youth from the villages think about and they are already interested in village development. So how can they bring about changes in their own villages with a gender lens, of course. So this is called Avahan Fellowship, and it has also been certified by TISS, and we hope to get it up on the TIS website hopefully very soon. So yeah, so these are some of the things that we are doing. The third part is the issue of domestic violence. I'm not sure how many of you have been witness to that, but the statistics say 1 in every 3 women has been a victim of violence. And I will just tell you, of course, when I stayed in a village for almost 15 years of my 16 years of my life. I was in a village, so I was quite used to hearing this. But when I moved to Indore, when we started work in Madhya Pradesh, uh, and I live in a place which is relatively affluent as compared to the villages. Both my neighbors, I have heard beating and shouting, and we just simply go and knock the door, and we are like, "What is it? Do you need something?" And the woman only came out and she's like, "It's my personal problem. Why are you interfering?" We are like, "We are not interfering. We just wanted to ask you if you need tea or coffee or water or something." And then she's like, then she started like, मेरा वजूद क्या है? I remember this word that she said. मेरा like every time मैं घर के लिए इतना काम करती हूँ, अगर कुछ नहीं होता है तो ये लोग ऐसे बोलते हैं, तो मेरा वजूद क्या है? मेरी औकात क्या है? इस तरह से एक शहर की महिला को भी लग सकता है। और I always used to think women in urban areas are much empowered because economic empowerment is relatively there, but I was sadly mistaken. The situation in urban areas, and therefore I would request all of you to look around you with a gender lens. Very, very important. I would just tell you the kind of alienation that urban women face, including a lot of you around, is a lot more damaging than the kind of oppression that rural women are facing. I have seen this in the last 4 years, and I would just say there is very little I still can do about it. It's a lot of work that needs to be done around that. So so that is something that I think I would request all of you to be part of a group again, because it's very important that women come together as network both in urban areas and in rural areas. And I have just realized that in urban areas the pressure of day to day existence is so much more that spending time in a collective or in a network becomes very challenging for them. So it's like driving but not stopping for the gas. It's more or less like that for urban women. I'm sure if you start looking at it, you all of you will get a better understanding of that. So in terms of violence, what we did was we started counseling centers, and we are training women. So you will be surprised to see a lot of women with the typical Marathi Navwari sari, who are like doing counseling. And I remember there was one time a guy who was in the IT department. He was like in a IT company, very fancy, and he's like, "What is this, madam? I want you to be there. They are counseling, and what will they do and all." He had a lot of questions. He was very skeptical about the counseling, and we told him, wait for a couple of sessions if you think that's not good enough. And then after 3 months or so, the issue got resolved, and then he came and he thanked us. And so that's the kind of power that women have. And this is something we are trying to build a partnership with the Inspector General of Police in Chhattisgarh. And we are also hoping that we will get a formal regulation from his department to place our women in the police stations once a week so that they can do counseling uh, whenever the cases are coming to the police station. So I think this is a little bit about the work that we are doing. Just quickly, in terms of statistics, we work with around 1,10,000 women across Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh. We work in around 18 districts of Maharashtra and MP, 14 in Maharashtra and 4 in Madhya Pradesh. And in Chhattisgarh, we work with the Rural Development Department, work with 20 federations, around 25,000 women, but no direct intervention, just building capacities, training programs, and all that. And the federations have in the COVID times, yeah, just two figures. There was a issue of repayment collection, but all during the lockdown period, 80% of our members collected the loan repayment amount and directly deposited in the bank, because our staff could not go, the federation staff could not go. No, so this is what happens when there is ownership of an institution. Women realized that if they do not repay, the interest would be additional on them. So the moratorium that the government talks about just means that you have to pay additional 6 months interest more. So for smart women who understand this, they decided to repay the loans. And so that's one of the big achievements of women driven, women owned institutions that we have. So so much for now. Yeah, so that's from my side in terms of what we do and where we are. And we have just started with so if I start talking, we've just started with women entrepreneurship programs. We are taking the support of Mahindra and Mahindra to train 20,000 women as entrepreneurs. So we're just keeping our fingers crossed that this will be one way to address the challenges of COVID that women have faced. So I'll stop here. Otherwise, I can just go on and on, because it's nice to share with all of you, but I'll look forward to your questions.
Yeah, Kalpana ji, that was very, what do you say, very inspirational journey that you shared, and the areas that you're working. Because when you are sharing with us with that smiling face, we feel that it's such an easy job that you're doing, but we very well understand that working at the rural level and in the interiors with so many challenges, I'm sure it's a very difficult task. And the the smile that you share, it clearly explains your passion about your work. So having said that, I think I will invite questions. If any of my colleagues would want to have a question, I can just unmute them. They can personally ask the question. So is there anybody who's wanting to ask a question? Or else then maybe
Can
because
I
I,
just set the
yeah,
ball rolling?
yeah, please, Shabani. Yes, yes.
First of all, thank you very much. That was wonderful because I'm from the English department and I do teach a lot of feminist theory and women's writing. And I think teaching is kind of activism, but the kind of work that you actually do engaging with women, I think that it just is very, very inspiring. For the lack of a better word, but really inspiring that you're actually able to sort of do this for women who need it. I think all women need some kind of hand holding, and that also leads to my question: how much of hand holding and for how long is it required? Because I mean, you said you begin the process, but how does it pan out over a period of time? Are they able to further, the women that you do start on the path of some financial independence and therefore some kind of empowerment? Are they then in turn, are they able to pass it on and empower other women? How does it work?
Sure, sure. I think uh, this is a very good question, and this is something that when I joined in '99, I tried to make it into a model. Um, Looking so initial setting up the model, the organic process started from 91 to 99, and from 99 to 2005 we were experimenting with, should we do it at the village level, should we do it at the block level, where should be the self-reliant sustainable institution model be, the VO village organization level or the federation level. And in 2005, we started with the experiment. We had the first federation in 91 itself. The second federation came up in 2005 because till then we were exploring and starting with. And then the other federations started coming in 2007 and 8. And in tribal areas, it takes typically 4 to 5 years for women to come together into a group, for them to start realizing the importance of a village organization and the collective. And very often, the federation process is a little from the top, because while the groups can be organically built because it's neighborhood groups, the federation bringing in systems and processes, because it's all about finance. So there has to be a strong MIS, there has to be a strong financial system in place. And then for women to understand it, for them to start practicing it, and then training the team members. So then women become the resource persons and they train the staff who comes in, and the staff who was responsible for promotion, we have to make it a point to withdraw that staff, because otherwise that staff has the attitude of, oh, I know better than them. So therefore this is a lot of learning process that we have gone through. Otherwise the staff can be overpowering also, especially both male and female staff, but male staff by and large. So therefore, I would say for tribal area, typically 5 to 6 years, because their exposure is relatively limited. In areas which are closer to the cities and all, it takes 3 years. And if we have support, like Rotary Foundation once gave us some initial fund, then even in 2.5 years, women can take it up. But 3 to 5 years is the time that is required to set up a self reliant and sustainable federation. In that, I think this whole trajectory now, it's been 22 years that I have been part of this institution. It's very important to keep reinventing ourselves. I think innovation, you must have heard it, but I have lived it. So, therefore, I would say that innovations are so important. If we keep talking about SHGs, now, if we keep talking about federations, women will not respond because there are a number of institutions which are providing these services. So, how are you providing services which women need, which are responsive to them, is something that every institution, especially the federations, have to keep thinking of and keep reinventing themselves all the time. Otherwise, federations will not sustain. So, from 91 to now 2001, we have a federation which is getting an award on 30th of November, is because of its strategy. And therefore, also, I think while a lot of people do tell me that we should reduce the pace of work and take, I just think with innovation, we should also be increasing the pace of work, because that's how we remain relevant to what women require. And I think if you all ever have had this question of meaning and purpose of our life, I think for me, it's been to stretch ourselves to the limit, because we don't know what our potential is unless we stretch ourselves and extend ourselves. So that's for a lot of students to dwell on because I have dwelt on it for a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a wonderful statement, Kalpana ji. I think there's one question coming from one of our students, Shubham Sandeep. I'll just read out his question. Ma'am, as you said, some of the women have adapted to violence and the living situation. What are the ways we can change the mindset? It's coming from one of our male students, Shubham Sandeep.
Yeah, it's, as I told you, it's very tough, um, because you are introducing something that will disturb them, and I had a lot of this reflection process going on when we were doing gender trainings, and then I concluded, based on discussions with a lot of seniors also, that. I think it's up to us, just as today the teachers are giving you an exposure. I am one of the people you are getting exposed to. I'm sure they will be exposing you to a lot of other speakers. And then it's up to your own subjectivity to take whatever you want to take and leave whatever you don't accept. I think that intelligence is with every individual, every human being, including women. So while I was chastising myself, saying that I am exposing them to ideas that may disturb their peace of mind, or what they have accepted, but I also have to acknowledge that this is one of the ways. And if whatever we say today relates to your own personal experience, that is what you will take. The rest you will just forget. And I think that is the best that we can do, because a lot of development, is about changing mindsets. And changing mindsets comes when you are talking and demonstrating what you're talking, and people see that, and they take a decision for themselves. You cannot really you can influence, but you cannot really force anyone to take any decision. So that's how we do that, exposing them to our gender trainings, orienting them to setting up role models, and also, as I said, we have a cadre of jankars, women who are having the jankari. So we call them jankars, who train other women. Because if I talk to a woman and I say this is how, I would be considered as okay, you can probably talk about it because you have studied and you've been living a different life altogether. But that's not applicable to me. But if a woman from the same village says that this is how things can be, I think that makes a lot of difference. So invest in them, and you need initially one person or two people who accept, or with whom you can communicate the same language, and you share the same language, and then things scale up. So I was thinking a lot about language and how important it is also to communicate. Your literature, Shivani ji, must have taught you a lot about that too.
Absolutely. In fact, I was thinking of the fact that you have local support. I mean, without that, I think it's impossible to bring
Impossible.
about at the
Impossible.
grassroots level. Huh? So, just so another question, kind of related to that, how difficult was it for you to function, for your organization to function, and for the women during the pandemic,
How difficult it was for us during the pandemic?
and for the
Mm,
women in the rural areas? Because we've seen what it is in the urban setup, but I think the challenges there are very, very different.
Yeah, I think even I was wanting to know about that. And I think you've had been doing some great work. Why don't you share that, Kalpana, the pandemic situation?
yes. Just to share about the impact of pandemic on women, it has been in terms of having no cash. So, a lot of women who either in forest areas were going for collection of non timber forest produce and selling it were not able to do that. During the marriage season, a lot of income gets generated because marriage is also a great economy, for a great source of employment for a lot of people. That did not happen. So all forms of cash income was affected, and also a lot of farmers were not able to sell their produce. Apart from that, the other challenge was not being able to take loan because banks also became less reticent to give loans because they were like पैसे तो है नहीं, repayment तो होगा नहीं, और वैसे भी moratorium था. So that was another aspect. The third was violence. While there were a lot of cases which came in of wife beating, drudgery increased because as people returned from the cities to the villages, women had to fetch water and had to take care of families and everything. So that was an important problem, and violence. While there were some women who also said that this became the reason for men to also accept and recognize the kind of work we do at home, but such women were few and far between. But there were a lot of cases of violence happening in the. So these were some of the implications of women lost their businesses. A lot of women, like in Bombay, we work in Vasai area in Thane region where they were taking trains to work. They lost their jobs. They had no income. I would say a lot of women uh, just simply lost every source of income. Women there who were working as home workers, like cleaning and all that, they were not treated very well by some families, or they were asked not to come, which stopped their sources of income. So, such women, especially in semi urban areas, because a lot of it was linked to the urban facilities, be it trains in Mumbai or be it work in big houses as domestic help or whatever, they faced the biggest crunch. in a lot of rural areas which were not so affected by it. In fact, I will just tell you, in June, I myself took out the car and I traveled in 2020 and again in 2021. And while so there wasn't much of an issue in rural areas in terms of travel, in terms of restrictions and all. In 21, a little bit more strict because the deaths had increased quite a bit. So villages had stopped entries to quite some extent, which affected the movement of our staff. But as I said, because we are very closely working with women, and some of the staff are women themselves who rose up from the ranks of being SHG members to now being staff. So, in I would say 90% of the villages, we did not have much of a problem in terms of going there and interacting with women, conducting meetings and trainings and all that. Yeah. But in terms of income, yes, and therefore we now have this big enterprise program.
Mobin,
Yeah.
can you,
Yeah,
I think Shubha wanted
I
to.
can't. Yeah, I think Dr. Shubha wanted
Yeah,
to.
yeah. Thank you, Mubin. Thank you,
Shubha?
Shibani. Yeah, can you all hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, Kalpana ji, she's Dr.
Yeah,
Shubha from the Department of English, one of our
We can hear
colleagues.
you, Shubha.
yeah, thank you so much. First of all, let me extend my admiration for all the work that you have been doing, Kalpana ji, and it's quite remarkable that you and your team are trying to empower women in different ways and at different levels. And I can relate to some of the incidents because I also at one point of time during my college life, while I was student, like many of my students, was part of one self-help group. The kind of resistance, the kind of contempt we used to receive from the society at large, from men in general and also from family members to the general society, for whatever we tried to do to support women in distress. So these are all very empowering stories. They move you, they bring tears to your eyes, and one really feels that one can't do enough. And sitting in a place, although being teachers, we are trying to sensitize our students, we are trying to empower them in a way that they can take decisions for themselves, they can stand for their rights, they can have their own callings and all that. But what I feel is that while for women living in society, in cities, basically, it's like a privilege. They can their voices can be heard, but we never get to hear about the Adivasi women or the village women. You talked about oppression of women, alienation of women in UP. So I have seen that all of that from close quarters, and illiteracy being the biggest reason for that. I mean, women, in many families, girls are not educated enough, to stand for themselves. But what I feel is that for women basically for of lower caste, of the marginalized sections, it is not possible for them to come out with their stories, and they keep on suffering, those having those sufferings throughout their existence. So what can be done to empower them, to bring their stories to light, especially their sexual exploitation? I mean, if something happens in Delhi, Delhi is the capital, it's the heart of the country, but here also we have seen all sort of violence happening against women day in day out. But yes, what if how can we empower women who are situated in corners, remote corners in the villages, and they come from such marginalized sections, from the lower caste, and they are marginalized at home and also outside. So that is something that I really wanted to know. And how do you deal with it, and how do you help those women, in the
Yeah.
rehabilitation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shubha, that's such an important question that you put forth. If I may just add to it, Kalpana ji, I also want to ask your experience, because I personally feel that there's a lot of awakening among the minority women themselves. So how do you deal with the minority women issues also? I mean, if we can connect with this entire observation that Dr. Shubha has done, on the marginalized women. So what are the challenges and how do you deal with that? Because we know how sensitive it is when it comes to these issues. Yeah.
Yeah. So, just when you were talking about it, this incident was flashing through my mind, and I'll just share it. In Chhattisgarh, there is a district called Kondagaon, which is supposed to be a very remote, interior, and Naxalite affected, as they say, area. And so we were in one of the Keshkal is one of the blocks there. We have started a counseling center, and this woman came, and her husband had also come for counseling, and the woman showed that she was beaten up. And when we asked her why she has not complained or whatever, she said she her response was that either I will die if I stay in that house, or I want to move out. So that was her response. And when we heard this, our initial approach is to bring a compromise. When we heard this, we were like, okay, we have to go to the police station, no matter what. And because if she's saying that I will die, that's and like there have been cases where women are just like, I want to live. That's all I want. What do you want? I just want to live, to be able to survive. Like that's how things can be. And we went to the police station, and we said this is the problem. And then the response, he was a very nice guy, uh, but his response was, oh, these women, they will complain, and then we intervene, and then they will backtrack, and then they will be like, okay, we don't have an issue, we will go back and live with our husband. So then we explained to him that you are actually giving a bargaining power to woman by intervening. Don't think that your intervention is useless just because she hasn't formally lodged a complaint. Just think of the bargaining position. She's able to negotiate better, the Amartya Sen words of bargaining and negotiation. So when I explained to him, he was convinced. He was like, okay, fine. So he called the guy and everything. And the woman, he first asked her, why did you not come to the police station, and this and that. And then he called the man, and whatever we said, you just threaten. So when we talked to her, she has 3 kids also. And if she leaves her husband, who will take care of the kids was another question. So sometimes when you are facing situations like this, you feel so helpless because you cannot possibly do anything. She can go to a center like Women and Child Department has Sakhi centers. She can stay there for 10 days or so. But what will happen to the kids? So the only way we could resolve the matter was to threaten the guy so that he understands that she is not alone. She cannot go to her parents' house also because they are not having sufficient income to take care of 3 kids, and that's what works. Then I wish I could share with you, Mubin. Maybe I will share with you on WhatsApp. The photograph of her smiling face after a week or so is what made us feel a little better about the otherwise helpless situation of there is only this much we can do in such situations.
Yeah. Yeah, how nicely put, Kalpana ji. I think I'll just have one. See,
And your question
empowerment.
about
Yeah, I
minority
just
women.
wanted to know that do you feel that there is some change in the approach of the minority community with regard to empowerment of women? Because we know there are laws, there are things. Because this is my interest. I would want to know what is the situation at the core level. Is there that awareness or still that ignorance that no, we are women and we have to just follow what is being told to us? Do we find any spark of urge for empowerment? That's what I wanted to know.
I will just say that in terms of minority community, there is no one answer to that. In Junnar, in Pune district, where I started my work, So, in fact, one of Noor Bano, she is the person who actually takes credit for teaching me Marathi. And we did a common teleconference for Copenhagen way back. I think it must be 20 years back or something. And she was also the president of the federation. Amazing woman, amazing. And I mean, it'll be lovely if you talk to her. And she's like, da 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 da. She just keeps, should do this, should do this. So she's like that. She will give me a set of instructions about how things should be run, which is amazing. And then there are women who are uh, just like, no, we have to take permission. No, we can't do that. And we have to tell them how to negotiate things in the family. And therefore, we adopt an approach whereby the men feel, and any special, that's why finance plays an important role, because if credit is coming, money is coming, they will accept it much better. And my submission is that you do not do a direct confrontation, but you create more spaces for yourselves. So create new spaces where you can move around. And because if you get into this is mine and this is wrong and this is wrong, it will just create a lot of stress. So that's how negotiations start happening, and I very strongly believe in that. And that's what women say. And when we ask them, परिस्थिति में कुछ बदलाव आया, आपके पति क्या कहते हैं अभी? कहते तो हैं, अब वो बदल भी गए हैं, लेकिन कभी एक्सेप्ट नहीं करेंगे। मुंह पे कभी नहीं बोलेंगे कि things have changed. Like men will never acknowledge that things have changed, but they also know it, we also know it. So that's the response that women have given me.
Male ego.
Yes, I think
So-
yeah, please.
Yeah, so I would say for the minority community or any community for that matter, and because we are like, you have just one lens, and that is women. You don't accept any other lens, because then it can get very
Wonderful.
disturbing and differentiating, and we don't want to
True.
bring that.
Yeah, I think that was wonderfully addressed, Kalpana ji, the questions and all the comments that we are having. I have just one last question, that if any of our students want to take up this as a career, they want to go and work and they want to take up this challenging career that you have taken, and I'm sure there's no perks or anything included in this. It's all mere passion,
Oh, there
true
is.
passion with the work that you're doing. So I want to know that what is it that inspired you? What is that one thing that you would have an advice for our students if they want to take up this as their career and want to bring about the change that the kind of change that you're working on?
I will tell you about the perks. The first is that this is one sector where you can think of an idea and you can implement it with the donations and grants that are coming from somewhere else.
Mhm.
So if you, the only difference is that if you were doing it for yourself, you would possibly pocket the money also, but then you have to spend the money also. Whereas here, any idea that you have to change the world, be it health, be it education, be it, you can try anything. Your ideas and support of women, if you are able to convince them, of course, which will take some time, and the grant support also coming in. So you don't have to spend any money. My brother says, "Wah, tumhara to acha hai, tum logon se sirf baatein karte ho and you get paid for it also." Here I am making steel and all. He is in Steel Authority of India Limited. So that's the first perk. The second perk is, like, every day when I get up in the morning, I am not like, oh my God, another day. I never have that feeling, because every day is different. Like today, I have this session with you. Yesterday, I was talking to Cummins India. Before that, Mahindra. Before that, I was in some village in a tribal area interacting with women. So the scope and the range is so diverse, so vast. And most importantly, when you go and work in a corporate, you are specializing in one thing. So either you are in charge of, say, just doing data entry, or you are in charge of maybe just doing part of analysis. I think this sector gives you an idea of what is it to generate an idea, then implement an idea, and then test it out whether it works or not, change it. ये फ्रीडम आपको कहाँ मिलेगा? कहीं और नहीं मिलेगा। तो आप ये तो सोचिए ही नहीं कि इसमें कुछ पर्क्स नहीं है। एंड द काइंड ऑफ, आई एम रियली टेलिंग यू, द काइंड ऑफ joy that you get when you see other women, you see their faces change when they are empowered, when they have that glow of confidence, when you see their faces change, and that will be the biggest perk you will ever get. So I will never say that if there weren't enough perks, you will not see me smiling so much with all the hard work that we do. So I would really want some good team members to come, and I'm very happy that in our team also now we have some people who have come from the corporate and working here because they see a lot of satisfaction. The only thing is we can't pay that much, but gradually people are acknowledging that some of it needs to get paid. We also realize that basic requirements of motivated team members need to be addressed, because we can't say do it for free. That's not possible because they also have families and everything. So we are trying to again strike a balance between the two, and yeah, it's a journey, and we hope to keep moving.
Yeah. So how nicely explained, Kalpana ji. And listening to you makes me feel that, especially the topic that we thought to have a lecture on, this women collectives. It's all about a group of women, and all about the thought of collectivity that we have a shared purpose. I think keeping that in mind, the shared purpose of change that we want to bring about in our society in our very own capacity, like Shibani and Shubha, we were discussing, and they said that as teachers and as change makers, we are also trying to bring about that change. And this was having this lecture and inviting you, and you giving us time and sharing your wonderful work that you're doing, experiences, and the challenges and the goodness and the perks, as you define the perks of your work. I think it's a great inspiration. I think there is one comment. I should not miss it. Yeah, this comment is also from one of our senior colleagues, Achinglu. She writes, "Thank you, Kalpana ji, for sharing your valuable experience. We owe you for making the world, especially that of women, better. Wishing you all the best." This is also from one of our colleagues, Achinglu. She's from the Department of English. Now,
We owe it to women to make the world a better place. All women.
Yes, definitely, and I'm sure Shivani would agree that maybe when things get normal, we would definitely invite Kalpana ji when she is in Delhi in person to maybe have an interaction with the students or do a workshop, in normal times post pandemic. Definitely.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. And because we
Yeah.
also see youngsters, are very, very sort of, they are very sensitive to the, needs of
Yes.
the world. So I think I do see a lot of youngsters who are not necessarily sort of, it's not just the money that they are after. They do want to sort of contribute towards making society, the world better. So I think they are, but they may not necessarily know how to go about it. So a workshop, an interactive session would be wonderful, I think, because a lot of students do look at social work nowadays, especially, in
Yes.
terms of actually a career option. They look at it that seriously, I think. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I think that's nicely put, Shibani. Now, I would request one of my WDC members and senior colleague, Dr. Nidhi Dureja, to please come and deliver the official vote of thanks. और उसके पहले मैं एक छोटा सा शेर अर्ज करना चाहूंगी कि आप जैसे लोगों से मिलकर, आप जैसे लोगों का काम देखकर मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि एक शेर मुझे याद आता है कि मेरे जुनून का नतीजा जरूर निकलेगा, मेरे जुनून का नतीजा जरूर निकलेगा, इसी सियाह समंदर से नूर निकलेगा, इसी सियाह
क्या बात
समंदर से नूर निकलेगा. थैंक यू
बहुत
कल्पना जी, एंड आई इनवाइट डॉक्टर निधि दुरेजा टू काइंडली deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Mobin. It was indeed a great pleasure to hear you, Kalpana ji. Seriously, and it was a interactive session also. It was a great talk. I'm thankful to you that you took time out of your busy schedule and delivered a talk entitled Empowerment Through Women's Collectives. Right. It gave a deep insight into the topic and also revealed some interesting facts like how financial empowerment, decision making, and self identity helps a woman to make a place in the society, and how these positions can be acquired by 4 steps. Collectives bring in women a desire to change, then articulation of the self expression, action for change, and then acceptance of the woman in the society. So these points, how woman how a woman brings the self-governed and self-reliant as well as the sustainable. I'm really impressed, and actually I saw your emotions also while talking and while going back into that particular moment. It's really I'm not able to express my feeling. So yeah. And the collaboration, how you collaborated with Inspector General of Police as well as Mahindra and Mahindra, that is the corporate sector. You are collaborating with the corporate sector also, and you are bringing funds into the Chaitanya as well as into your federation. So I'm thankful to you, as well as like you are motivating the women of the underprivileged section to go sustainable about their life. Really, hats off to you, and I appreciate your spirit that keeps you motivating, that keeps you moving ahead.
Thank you.
Seriously,
Thank
yeah.
you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
along with this, I take this occurrence to thank our principal, Professor Gyantosh Kumar Jha, for his leading supervision as well as inspiration at every point in time. Along with this, I would extend my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Shibani, the convener of WDC, for organizing this event, and Dr. Syed Mubin, that is the dedicated team member for bringing you at this platform. Along with this, I would extend my thanks to Dr. Manisha, Ms. Swati, then Dr. Preeti, and Mr. Rajkumar Bhakt, for supporting their help as well as their back support. Along with this, I would extend my thanks to my colleagues. There are a lot. Dr. Shubha, Dr. Chinglu, and then Rashmi ma'am is also there, as well as I think I'm missing out.
Manjula ma'am is there.
Manjula ma'am is there, yeah. So thanks to all for joining this event and making this session interactive. And along with this, I extend my generous thanks to students, especially Shitba, who helped us make this event a success by contributing in making poster, Google form for taking entries, and so on. So I once again thank you, Kalpana ji, for having spared your valuable time for us, and wish you all the very best for your future endeavors.
Thank you so much.
so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kalpana ji. Thank you very much. It was wonderful. Thanks, Mubin, for organizing this. Really.
No, thank you for making it possible, all of you. It's a collective effort. Thank you. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
everybody. So I shall
Okay.
end the meeting now.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yeah. All the best, Kalpana ji, for your work.